Here are 10 reasons why Michigan beats Nebraska to open up Big Ten Conference play with a win and defend their top 25 ranking. I picked Michigan to beat Nebraska in my Michigan versus Nebraska preview and prediction video, which is linked in the top right corner of your screen. Would highly advise and love it if you watch that video if you haven't already, and leave a like and leave a comment. I've already made a top 10 reasons why Nebraska will win this game. Link to that right now is in the top right corner of your screen as well. So I've taken the Nebraska perspective, and since I'm not confident in this game and I think Nebraska's a good team, there are several reasons, 10 of which I gave, that Nebraska can win. But today I want to focus on the reasons why I picked Michigan, giving 10 of them, and go at a more granular and detailed level as to why I picked the Wolverines to win this critical Big Ten Conference game, an opener, Big Ten Conference opener for both of these teams. Before we start, please share this video around. Please subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell, not just for the channel, but the Nebraska and Michigan YouTube playlists, podcasts I've created that are attached to the video. That way you can get notified when I react to this game, and that way you can get notified when I release more Nebraska and Michigan videos. Also, comment your thoughts down below. I love engaging with you. But let's go with reason number 1. We'll start there and work to reason number 10. Reason number 1 being that Michigan's offensive line is much better than Nebraska's defensive line. Now, Michigan's offensive line has had their fair share of struggles. I'm not saying it's an elite unit. It's not like the 2023 unit. However, Nebraska's defensive line is also not like their 2023 defensive line. They don't have Nash Hutmacher. They do not have Ty Robinson. They're not as deep or strong as they were in 2023 or 2024. They're pretty light there. When I watched that Nebraska-Cincinnati game, one of my first takeaways, really before halftime, was that Nebraska's defensive ends looked like Big Ten linebackers, and their linebackers looked a little bit smaller than Big Ten linebackers. Not saying Nebraska doesn't have a good defense. What I'm saying is Michigan still has an offensive line that's above 300 pounds and has multiple playable characters and players on that unit. They should be able to run block and pass protect well against this Nebraska defensive front, who I think will have to bring blitzes in order to get pressure on Underwood, and will have to stack the box to even really have a chance to stop Michigan's rushing attack. That is just in theory. It could be proven wrong, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it will not be proven wrong. After all, when you look at game on paper, Michigan's offense is 29th in adjusted EPA per play right now. A huge part of the reason why is they're averaging 6.17 yards per rush. They're only allowing an 8.1% havoc rate, so only 8.1% of their plays are sacks, tackles for loss, turnovers, pass deflections, etc. And they have over a 40% success rate on the ground, which is, not great, but also not below average. And this is the toughest test Nebraska's defensive front will face on the ground, even more so than Cincinnati, who had success against them. Reason number 2 is the defensive line and its run stuffing ability. They're only allowing 3.65 yards per rush, and that's sack adjusted. Michigan does a really good job with their defensive line of being able to have a light box and slow down opposing ground attacks. Now, their pass rush, different story. I think Michigan's taken a pretty big step back in pass rush since last year. That's what happens when you lose Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. But in terms of run stopping, I think they've pretty much reloaded there. Having the linebackers, they do help, but having Damon Payne, Trey Williams, Trey Pierce, having Rayshon Benny, and other players in that 2-deep, 3-deep, Noetta, who are 300 pounds or larger, many of whom blue chippers, almost all of them seniors or juniors with experience and good coaching. With the defense they run, I think that they will do a pretty good job giving Nebraska's run defense fits. I think Emmett Johnson will get a play here and there because he's a good running back with a nice burst, good vision, but I think Nebraska's offensive line will have their hands full in run blocking. So Michigan, in these 2 reasons, will dictate the trench play, I think, here. In the same way Nebraska, as I explained in my 10 reasons why Nebraska will win video, they will probably dictate the air attack. Reason number 3 why Michigan will win is their linebackers, Jayshon Barham and Ernest Hausman. They are seniors. Barham has 2 sacks on the season. He's Michigan's best pass rusher. He will play in this game full 60 minutes. I think that while Luke Lindenmeyer has done a pretty good job with Nebraska, I wonder whether or not maybe these Michigan linebackers could have a matchup edge against the tight ends here. And Dylan Raiola, he has good pocket awareness, but I also think that he does not necessarily have the mobility to get away from blitzing linebackers or from the defensive line if it's able to get an edge on pass protection over the Nebraska O-line. We'll see if that happens. I think why the linebackers are such an important piece here is I don't think Michigan will get pressure with 4. They will have to get pressure with Barham or Hausman, mainly Barham, as he's more of their blitzing linebacker. He could play an edge if he wanted. So that combined with their tackling, their pursuit, their perimeter speed to limit some of those outside plays is a big reason why Michigan's defense can succeed and lead Michigan to a victory. Number 4 is Bryce Underwood. He's a 75.7 QBR. He can create effective rushing plays too, as we saw against Central Michigan. We did see some plays against Oklahoma where he was able to scramble out of the pocket when it collapsed and find some players downfield. Donovan McCulley or Samaj Morgan in the first quarter. Oklahoma's defense, I think, is better than Nebraska's. And now that Underwood has already had a tough road start, I think this road start go around will be naturally easier, irrespective of opponent, than the Oklahoma game was. So his mobility, adding on to Michigan's offensive line already likely getting downfield against this Nebraska defensive line, and his rushing threat, and likely having a cleaner pocket than he did against Oklahoma, means that he'll be much more comfortable against this Nebraska defense than the Oklahoma defense. And I think that bodes well for Michigan. Number 5. Reason number 5 are the tight ends and fullbacks that Michigan has. So Max Bredesen, Marlon Klein, Hogan Hansen. Michigan's tight ends are reliably their best receivers. Better than the running backs, pretty obviously, and they're better than the wide receivers too. Hogan Hansen and Marlon Klein look like they are really effective, if not having elite characteristics in pass catching. Not saying they are elite, I'm saying they may have that potential. Some of the one-handed grabs they've made, the possession catches, the routes they've run, the speed they have in space, I think is impressive. Bredesen functioning as an extra blocker can help a lot when I believe Nebraska is going to be stacking the box here, and if they don't, then that's their decision and probably mistake. And having these tight ends against Nebraska linebackers who outside of Donovan McCulley are really, 6'2", 6'1", Marquise Watson, Trent's 5'11", I think that Michigan will have a matchup edge against some of these linebackers in coverage or even in blocking situations. Reason number 6 is that Michigan has a depth edge. I'm not going to say talent edge. I almost went with talent edge. But I realized that Michigan is only as ahead of Nebraska in talent as Ohio State is ahead of Michigan. So yes, Michigan's more talented than Nebraska, but that's a pretty moot point, I would say. Michigan and Nebraska are close enough within talent to where I think the style will more so determine the fight than the talent will. If Ohio State say we're playing Nebraska, I don't think that there would be much that could go Nebraska's way, for example, because Ohio State's just so many deviations more talented that they're not even close to within margin of error, and Ohio State's talent could probably compensate for any matchup edges that they have, that the Cornhuskers have. For Michigan and Nebraska, it's not quite that extreme. They're close enough in talent to where there are several equalizers that can go Nebraska's way. Michigan, though, I think irrespective of talent, does have a depth edge, especially on the defensive line and at linebacker. And I would say their secondaries are pretty similarly deep. If, for whatever reason, Rod Moore is healthy and able to play, which is a big if, I'm not counting on that, Michigan probably has better depth at safety. I would also say that Michigan has better depth at running back right now and tight end, and on the offensive line, it's probably similar. A lot of positions are such that Michigan's second stringer is closer to their first stringer than Nebraska's second stringer is to the first stringer, in my opinion. So that depth edge, as the game goes on, if it's close, will start to lean Michigan's way. Reason number 7, Justice Haynes. Not Jordan Marshall, not any of the other backup running backs. Haynes is running back number 1 by a mile. And even in a game where Michigan was running into a numbers disadvantage pretty stupidly, where even when they had a numbers edge, it didn't always work out in their favor because Oklahoma's O-line was better than Michigan's D-line, he found a big play. He found a way. I like his vision. I like his speed, his burst. I like everything about him. Very similar, not in terms of play style or that the exact same player, but I like Haynes in the same way I like Emmett Johnson. I think they can both compensate for the offensive lines. I do think Haynes is a more talented back than Johnson, and that combined with how I like Michigan's rushing offense in general in this game more than Nebraska's means with his acceleration, breakaway speed, and the player he is a factor here. He is one of the multiple chess pieces that can help Michigan cross that finish line. With 5 touchdowns, 7.9 yards per carry, and 388 rushing yards, I think there's a good shot he'll have a big day in Lincoln this Saturday. Reason number 8, they have multiple rushing threats. So we've already talked about Underwood. We've already talked about Haynes. Michigan has ran end rounds with Samaj Morgan and Andrew Marshall before. They can get almost anyone they want involved with the rushing attack. Doesn't mean it will succeed, but in theory here, and that's really all we have to go on, I do think Michigan will get multiple players involved in the ground game, and that will help them. Look, that'll help them to have success in this matchup here, to be able to run the ball on the outside, on the inside, to be able to run with your quarterback, whether it's some of his improvised runs or some more of his power designed runs. I think all of these things will make life hard for a Nebraska defensive front that is already at a size and personnel disadvantage. Reason number 9. So Michigan's wide receivers are not stars. I think Nebraska has the definitively better receiver room here. However, Michigan's averaging 7.5 yards per dropback, and some of that is because the staff has been able to scheme some players open, because Michigan, I think, at receiver is better than they were last year, and they obviously have a far superior quarterback. Case in point, 7.5 yards per dropback is not good. It's so much better than what Michigan had last year. And while a lot of that's quarterback and pass protection being superior, I also think Michigan's a titch better receiver. And now that they have a quarterback in a cleaner pocket, that can help maybe expose some of this talent. I wonder if Nebraska's secondary is as good as the metrics say. And I don't think that's the case. In the same way that you could easily get deceived by Michigan's rushing metrics, where a lot of the reason they have that very high rushing yards per play or per rush is because they've had bigger runs and they've actually struggled in power rushing. In the same way, I think Nebraska has not played many talented passing attacks, and I do think that Brennan Sorsby is not the same player that Underwood is, and I don't even know if Cincinnati has better receivers than Michigan does. So I wonder if Michigan, even in just bits and pieces, can maybe get some separation here. And then last but not least, they have potential at defensive back. I hate Michigan's DBs against Nebraska's receivers. I do. But I don't hate it as much in theory as I would Ohio State's receivers against Michigan's DBs. And schematically, Michigan has been able to limit Ohio State through the air, whether it's due to Ohio State's mistakes or whether they play a good game and Michigan can limit them regardless. There is a mental factor here that doesn't exist in this Big Ten matchup. But I do think that with the talent they have, the scheme they run, and the fact that, look, Michigan had plays available against Oklahoma. They had an interception. They dropped another one against Mateer. They had some safety corner blitzes that didn't exactly work out in their favor. I think that with maybe some more experience under their belt, there is a chance that Michigan could come alive at defensive back here in a way that they didn't exactly come alive against Oklahoma. Those are the 10 reasons why I think Michigan beats Nebraska. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the notification bell for both the channel and Nebraska and Michigan football playlists. That way you can get notified when I react to the game and when I make more content for both of these teams. Have a great day, everyone. Again, I'm picking Michigan to win. Those are the 10 reasons why. But I've also made a 10 reasons why Nebraska can win video. I think this will be a very competitive game and a very entertaining game. Have a great day, and I'll see you all very soon.